Welcome to today's episode. And today I welcome Stephen, where we're going to be diving into many things around men's work. We're going to be talking about freedom. We're going to be talking about the spiritual coaching he does, the personal development, and really the work he's doing to help guys out there. So I'm just going to quickly introduce Stephen and then we'll dive into today's conversation. So today we have Stephen Ocean joining us, a transformational business coach and the founder of Becoming Legends. With over 25 years in self-growth and personal development and over 15 years in the online business space, Stephen helps middle-aged men in the holistic, spiritual, coaching and health industries expand their capacity, grow their businesses and create true freedom. As the creator of the Forged Man Brotherhood and the Forged Man Online Gathering, he is leading a movement of men stepping into their power and building legendary lives. So, Stephen, pleasure to have you on here. Welcome to the show. Glad to
be here, man.
Yeah, good we can make it happen. Obviously, see a lot of your work, and I know you try to create a lot of impact and help other men share the message as well. So, appreciate it. Stephen, what? Obviously, you're trying to create lots of different impacts, but one of them you meant, as I touched on there, is creating more freedom for guys. What's freedom for you?
Yeah. So ultimate freedom, true freedom for a man. Yes, there's all these areas of life. There's freedom in money in our businesses and freedom in our marriage and all these different areas. But true freedom is that I'm no longer needing to do two things. One, suppress or sedate emotions and things when they come up. I'm actually just free to feel.
Hmm.
And two, I no longer play the game where I have to try to impress anybody or seek approval or validation. I can just show up as my true authentic self and let everything just fall where it's going to fall.
Mm, wow. So those are the two main ones for you. And do you like what's your drive behind doing this and helping guys? I mean,
Yeah.
was it did you go through something where you had a struggle yourself, or was it just like you've always been inspired to help guys? Be really interesting to hear your story behind creating such a movement.
Yeah, so a few things. One pivotal kind of led to it, which was, I've always played sports and high level things through my life. So there was always an aspect of that that was always like, what's the mindset and how can I get better within that? But outside in life, I never really had one. So, got in a relationship, um, with my wife who I'm with right now. We've been together 16 years. At a
Amazing.
year into our marriage, you know, literally almost on the anniversary. I'm like, we're doing great. This is amazing. We're gonna have a great time. And she's like, you're a defensive asshole. And if you don't change, this isn't gonna work. It was a huge wake up call because I was, and a lot of men are like this, we're oblivious sometimes to the impact that we can have because we live in a world or we live in a realm as men. We live in a state of privilege as men that nobody else has. So we can live inside of a bubble sometimes and think that the world operates how we think or whatever, move around that it is, but it's not how it is. And our impact, we're like strong, powerful things, but it's not impact because of just muscles. It's impact because of words. It's impact the way we respond or react or do these things in the world. So my impact, like she said to me, was you're emotionally, if it was you, like if this was a physical thing, it'd be like you were hitting me. This is what it feels like when you're defensive. It's like a shutdown and I can't move anywhere and I can't do anything. And it's like hurtful. And it was a huge moment where I like sat for a moment in there. I still wanted to defend also, but this voice in my head was like, if you defend right now, this thing was done. So I just sat there and I felt all this stuff come up and then it moved through it and I could see her for the first time and I could see the pain she was in and I could see what was the impact was. And I was like, oh shit. So I went down a big path myself.
Mm.
And I was like, as I went down it, I was like, holy crap, like what chance do guys have who aren't doing the work if I'm doing the work and I've been this far into it and I'm still here?
Wow.
So it's time to share the message of it.
Oh, wow. So Yeah, sounds like you really went into kind of like touch on some of the things you hadn't for many, many years, and
Mhm.
it started with that moment, and then diving in. I mean, in terms of like sitting with yourself, was it like you then sort out some coaching? Was it you
Yeah. I
you
went,
sort out some groups? Was it a bit of a combination?
yeah, it was like, I started looking for a bit of, I was still in self-help stuff, but there's a thing with it, which is oftentimes we can't actually help ourselves. We need other people. So I sought out mentors and coaches and just went down the rabbit hole of things and started like seeing life in a different way. And really, the basis of it all for all of us is our stories that we carry that often are to do with our, the things that everyone talks about, our childhood stuff, the different things that happen to us, the narrative. Like our life is this tiny little thing, it's a frame. And it's made up of rules, stories, and laws and beliefs of who we think we are. It's how we see the world and it's how we see ourselves in the world. So if I see life this way, it doesn't matter what comes or what shows up or whatever it is, everything will be inside of this frame. Infinite possibilities exist, but I only have access to this. And I wanted more, and I wanted more in my relationship, and I wanted my intimacy and sex and communication and stuff to go up there, but I wanted the other areas of my life to go up also. Well, this little box that I put myself in, or jail cell, has to be broken for me to actually have access to something different. So I just went through the process of breaking this stuff.
What did you find useful along the way? I mean, that sounds like you did a lot of work, but was there anything that really particularly helped you break through some of those stories where you're in the box?
Yeah, a few pivotal things. So a couple of, bigger mushroom journeys for sure, like 5, 6 gram dose journeys,
Mm,
but they didn't really do anything in terms of sometimes when people hear those, they go like, "Oh, it's gonna be some altered state." I wasn't really altered. I was just more in my power and capacity, like deeply grounded masculine presence, which is what I always wanted to have, and through that could see my impact. So as soon as you can see your impact, you can no longer go to sleep to the impact you have. That was one for sure. And the second one was through the journey of finding things as one piece. And it's the thing I start all men down the road with when they come into work with me. And it's this one piece, which is we live by a code. And the code is simple. It's stop lying and tell the fucking truth.
mm,
And we might not know what that means. That guy might not know what the truth even means, or that person is lying. And we start to uncover all these different pieces because the reality is until I establish what's real, where I really am right now, separate from all the things I say and all the things I don't say. Nothing can change in life because it's all built on a fantasy or a false sense of where I'm at. So when I try to go somewhere, I can't go anywhere because my feet aren't actually based on the ground in reality. Those two things start the journey for sure, but that one stop line and tell the truth is huge. It's pivotal.
mm. Being honest with yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's quite like I found for my journey as well, it's quite a difficult thing to just like sit in silence with yourself in a room. That was one of the hardest things I found.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I meditate 30 minutes, 25, and then I do another five and this other thing I do, about 30 minutes a day, every day. I've been doing it for years. And sometimes it's like, 30 minutes, this is amazing. And sometimes it'd be like 2 minutes in, and I'll be like, this is the worst.
Mm,
Because it's a perfect little it exposes like this tiny little practice will expose what's going on in real life. You show me, like, whether it's a meditation or whatever it is, if you give me access to a guy for 10 minutes on one area of his life, I will tell you why his life is not working across the board because how you do anything is how you do everything, which means if we clean this one piece up, we clean the whole thing up also. But
mm,
it's the process and the willingness to want to go. And most guys don't want to go. Like they say they want to go. You're like, I want to go. And it's like, okay, cool. Let's go. And they're like, ah. And then the excuses start to come up and the things start to come up. And it's like, Oh, okay. You say you want to go, but you're not willing to actually do the work required to have the life that you say you want to live. So then we got to look at two things. Do you actually want what you say you want? And if you do, we got to go. But if you don't, it's time to stop lying to yourself and come up with something new. And this causes so much turmoil in guys.
Hmm. So what do you think's like what do you commonly see is like blocking them from doing the work? Is it that ability to sit with themselves and be honest, or is it something else?
Um, Probably a combo of a couple things. One
Hmm.
is most guys come in with some form of, and they will not call it this, but some form of addiction, whether it's social media, porn, drinking, drugs, TV, sports, working out, whatever it is. They'll come in with some form of something that they're already using to sedate and numb and suppress the things they don't want to feel.
Hmm.
Like most guys are entering with that. And then there's the second piece, which is we've been taught as men that feeling shit is weak
Hmm.
when it's actually a superpower. It's actually strength. Because if I can't feel, and I have to, I had to ask my wife this one day when I was like sharing and talking, and I had these feelings coming up, and I was crying a bit, and had this stuff coming out, and she's like, "That's the strongest I've ever seen you." And I was like, had to literally stop her and said, "Are you fucking with me right now?" She's like, "What do you mean?" I was like, "It feels like the weakest thing possible to me inside here. And you're saying it's strength. So something's off." And she's like, "Yeah, your thing is off. You've been taught that that's weakness when it's strength because our emotional system is our guidance system for this world. And if I can't feel, I can't guide, I can't move, I can't do the thing I want to do. So we have to calibrate that. Well, how do we calibrate that? One, we got to stop lying. Two, we got to start feeling. And three, we got to stop sedating.
Hmm. I like what you said about it being a guidance system, like the emotions.
Yeah.
And if we're pushing them away, we can't get that guidance, right?
No, because I used to have like, an iPhone cord. It would be like this and kind of just like wrapped in a little knot. And for some reason, this cord would take me from a 0 to like a 10 in 2 seconds because I'm like, oh, what's going on? Why is it like this? And it's like, it's you can see that's a like massively out of calibration emotional system because this little cord shouldn't have that response with it. But when we start to calibrate these things out, it's like, no, it's just a cord and I can undo it because I'm calibrated and I can now feel the world and I can feel where I need to go and I can feel decisions and I can feel other people and I can feel choices that need to be made. Our whole thing is feeling. Guys are so focused on doing. We're taught do, 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 do. Being comes last. But really, it's flipping the script to say who I am matters more than what I do. Because if I can't feel and I can't show up, nothing I do matters. Nothing I do will ultimately work at the level I want. It may be successful, but will I feel worthy or successful or all those different things? No. And you see it all the time. Guys will have massive successes and they go like, I just feel it doesn't feel like anything's there. And it's like, yeah, because you're doing the thing to get the thing rather than being the thing first and then putting yourself into it. Those are two totally different things.
Mm. Can totally relate to the doing, and I think that's kind of something drilled in from a young age for many of us. It's
Oh, yeah.
passing these exams and then
Yeah.
getting the achievements or whatever. You know, you mentioned about like meditation's a really effective tool for you, something you do, and some days 2 minutes are so it's it's not as good as other days, and 30 minutes it's a bit more like peaceful and you're
Oh,
feeling the flow. What can guys do to, like, the man who's like, right, I know I need to start being more present, I need to start being, but I'm such a drive of like doing, how can that man start to be more?
well, it's not going to be instant for sure.
Mm,
But if you carved out 2 minutes, everyone has 2 minutes.
yeah,
Carved out two
I
minutes
agree.
and just sat with eyes closed or hit a little timer on the thing, eyes closed. And the best one is if I a lot of times I just focus on my heart, like not like focus on your heart space. I mean, I focus on my actual beating, like the thing that's keeping me alive, and I'll just focus on it. And if I drift from it, I just come back to it. And if I drift from it, I just come back to it. You do that for 2 minutes and then go about your day.
Mm,
You did that for like 10 or 15 days. A guy is going to start to notice a level of calmness that happens around him. He's going to notice something palpably different and probably want to by himself add another minute or 2 minutes on that and get to a point where he's, might sit for 5 to 10 minutes.
mm,
That little piece alone, and yes, things are going to come up, but there's nothing to do here. This is the point. This is about meditation is about being. I'm just going to be in it. And whatever comes up or whatever thought or whatever it is, I'm not doing anything with it. I'm not trying to make it go away. I'm not trying to analyze it. I'm not trying to think about it. I'm not trying to do anything. I'm just sitting there and whatever's going to happen is going to happen. When the
mm,
timer goes off, go do your thing. It will shift because what is it doing? It's increasing, and I talk about this with guys all the time. This is my number one thing. It's increasing capacity. Capacity we hear power sometimes in the world, but power gets a bad rap because if you Google power, it comes up with like Putin and Trump and world leaders and all these different things. Like that's nothing to do with power. I'm talking capacity, expanding my capacity big enough to be able to handle all of that life is going to throw to me. If I'm bigger in capacity than what life demands, I don't have chaos. If I'm smaller than what life demands, I have chaos. So we're doing these things to expand. It's part of this thing I do with the power protocol. I have guys go through a power protocol. Meditation's one piece in it. And it's all about just day to day, just small little expansions of capacity until all of a sudden we're in a state where we're so full that life's demands are no longer taxing.
mm. So just starting with the 2 minutes, I like that because, like you said, we've all got like 2 minutes, and then just expanding the capacity, which is
And
amazing.
2 minutes is enough because if you look at how distracted people are with dings and bings and all this shit on their phones, different things going on, 2 minutes it's like it'll feel like a long time to some guys. Yeah.
What's that? You mentioned maybe it's linked, but you mentioned earlier about a masculine a presence. For you, what is that? A healthy masculine presence.
Yeah. It's what I've come to understand it more and more and more is it's a level of um one being grounded. What I mean, it's like, what does that actually mean? It just means presence. It's that I actually am available. The number one thing that women divorce, especially middle-aged men, divorce their husbands from, and they're the predominant ones filing divorce. The number one thing they say is, I cannot feel my husband. I can't feel him. He's not available. And we're like, well, what does that mean? It means you're open, you're present, you have the ability to actually feel something more than angry, sad, pissed off, and the occasional like moment of happy for 2 seconds because a sports team won something or something happened. Like you're just, it's not related to something. You're just kind of there. You have the ability to walk in a room and people can feel you.
Mm,
That's what I'm talking about with it.
mm.
Where your wife goes, there he is. It happens in guys all the time. They'll come in and their wife will be like, they'll be like, oh, my wife said she could feel me the other day. And I was like, and that's what we're talking about.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And you've touched on like that 2 minute practice of just like feeling what's going on as well, like with your heart and something small like that.
Yeah.
All right. I found for me when I started to do quite a lot of like work on myself that yeah, when I'd sit in myself, the uncomfortable stuff might come up, like maybe some sadness that been dwelling, like been sitting there for a bit, high anxiety at times. But then actually, what I found I had the capacity to feel joy more. I was able to like feel the great emotions, but it's like that was being blocked by blocking out the more challenging emotions. I found.
That's the piece about it that people don't understand. It's like if I had a bag, this little bag right here, and I put in anger and frustration and overwhelm and shame and guilt and all the different things and unworthiness and everything, and I close it up, I have to remember that my emotions are a bag, and happiness and joy And all the other things that I want to feel are also in here. So when I close those off because I don't want to feel certain things,
Mm,
I close them all off.
mm,
So I have to be willing to open this thing up and maybe feel those things. And at the same time, it's like if I feel them, but I don't know how to work through them, then hire somebody to help you because there are people, that's the work I do, who can help you navigate the system of that and work through it and come out the other side, actually seeing these things as power rather than like weakness.
mm. I like the bag analogy, yeah, because yeah, we're sealing it off the
Yeah.
capacity to be a human being almost, certainly
Yeah.
being there in my life as well. So yeah, I know
And
you.
then what are you left with? One piece of it. Then what are you left with? You're left with sedation,
Mm,
numbing. Like you have to, because life's designed for our highest healing. So if I'm not willing to feel, well, then what do I have to do? I have to sedate, I have to numb. There's no other option.
mm,
What do I turn into? A grumpy old, like asshole man. You see them all the time. Why are they like that? They're sedated, they're numbing out because they're not feeling. Like you want a formula for misery? There it is.
mm. Yeah, have you? Yeah, I can certainly relate to that with the yeah blocking them off and then just builds up, builds up, builds up. Right, just some of that stored away emotions. For you, like with do you do many like men's groups or is it more kind of like one to one? You working with people at the moment?
All the men, so it's a combo. All the men um work together. All the men are in a group. All the
Okay,
men have individual one-on-one with me every single day through an app-based system that I use. So
got
it's
you.
like we're in deep accountability, but then we come together because one of the pieces that's missing for men is other men. We need to
Mm,
know and normalize the stuff we're having going on. When we get in a conversation and I start sharing something and someone's like, "Oh, I have that." I thought I was the only one with that. And it's like, we all think we're the
mm,
only one, except everyone's dealing with some version of the same thing, but nobody's talking about it because we're all lying.
mm,
So when we start talking about it and seeing like, oh, these are actually just normalizing these things, and now we can actually work and move through them, it's a game changer.
mm. Yeah, I'm glad you touched on that. I was going to ask you about what you've experienced and witnessed with men getting together and doing this kind of work on themselves or sharing with each other.
Yeah.
And
I
so,
mean, it's a game changer. That piece is a game changer. It was a game changer for me too. Like
mm,
I was raised by a mother who gave me an idea. Like my dad was around, but like they're still together, but he was working. He was gone all the time doing the work thing. So my view of what a man is and how and what all that world came from a mother, right? So I have this I what I understand it to be a man was through my mom's eyes, and really what I was taught a lot of the times was to hate men. So I grew up with this feeling of wanting to be a man but hating men.
mm,
And I was like, well, how do we what's going on? Well, let's get together and talk about this thing. You find out that a lot of men hate other men. Why? Because they were raised by mothers who gave them the view of what it is to be a man because their dad was out doing something or absent or whatever it was. And it's like, oh, we have a whole generation of guys who are not even realizing that our view of who we are and our hate for what we think isn't actually even real. Not even what a man is.
wow, powerful realization to get when we become aware of that. Very, very difficult keeping that like stored away and
It's crazy.
living from that way. Wow. So no, the power of like talking with other men in that and other challenge I've certainly like witnessed as well or experienced as well.
Yeah.
So Stephen, yeah, thank you for everything you've shared today. I know obviously you offer coaching, support, various services to people, particularly guys who might be like struggling out there, really wanting to develop themselves.
Yeah.
So yeah, for the individual who may be listening and wanting to connect with you, where can they find more from you? And is there a final point that you want to share with us today?
Yeah, so they can get me on Instagram at Stephen Ocean Life. You can
Mm,
DM me there. I also have an event happening right now called the Forge Man Online Gathering, totally free event inside of a Facebook group. We can put the link in the comments or show notes or whatever for that. And what was the last question? What I want to leave guys with?
Yes, if there's anything.
Yeah, the biggest piece is um, if you could do it yourself, you would have done it already. The whole
Mm,
I got it, I can do it, I can figure it out. I had this my entire life. It's a total lie. Let it go and reach out for help. You will not be able to have the transformation in life you want without seeking help. It's a word that no man really wants to say because it feels weak to say, I need help, but it is the strongest thing you can do because you actually realize in that moment that for the first time you have a chance at the life that you actually want to live.
100% beautiful point. Yeah.
Yeah.
You often have, I think being in coaching and in sales and all these things, I've had those conversations many times. It's like, actually, I think I'm all right. No.
Right.
Yeah.
And it seems like, oh, it's a sales thing. And it's like, no, it's a life-saving mechanism.
Mm,
It's like I have hopes and dreams, and if I haven't reached them by now, we're in our mid-40s. We don't have time to fuck around here. If I haven't reached them, it's not because I'm able to do them. I have to, there's some things I don't know, and there's some things that I need some help
mm,
with. So just go get it.
it's the hard truth, the honesty out of love. Sometimes people need to
I
hear.
know.
So yeah. No, thank you, Stephen. Really appreciate you coming on today.
Yeah, man, pleasure.
Awesome. So that concludes our episode for today. And remember to lead with your heart and not with fear.